Hello YouTube, welcome back. It's always the same place that I'm at, right in the middle of the road. Welcome, thank you for joining and watching, clicking on the video. Hopefully you have an interest in the title that I'm going to include and or the thumbnail that I'll include. This is a really important topic for almost everything that we buy, and this is the best time for me to talk about it because, like I said before, walking home from work is really the only time that I have, except this time I'm going to follow up to this video with a video on the weekend. Probably Saturday I'll do a live session sometime in the evening. I don't know what time yet. I'm going to have to figure that out. But manufacturing. Now, many of us have likely or do work in manufacturing. There are a lot of trades folks that work with products. They don't really build anything. They assemble or they finish wire or plumbing. That's not quite manufacturing. Retail customer service, stocking shelves, moving boxes, shipping, receiving, not quite manufacturing. But if you work at a factory and you have to assemble products and you have to assemble, like, even if it's food industry, you have to make and prepare recipes, batches, you have to control with lot numbers, serial numbers. If you have to apply a serial number to something, chances are you work in manufacturing. If you've ever been to a factory, worked in a factory, or had issues even with your car or products breaking down, or been curious about the parts that are inside, you've had some experience what manufacturing does. Manufacturing is literally how we get everything that we own. I wish this camera didn't have this Michael Bay effect. I haven't figured out my camera situation. So anyways, I've worked in food manufacturing, electronic manufacturing. As some of my friends know, I did work for Paradigm and Anthem. I'm starting to tell this story now where I wasn't before, but whatever. I used to work for Paradigm and Anthem, 2.5 years, somewhere right in the middle of where COVID happened. But I put my foot where it wasn't supposed to be and got fired. Oops, that was really my fault. But anyways, it gave me a good learning experience on how the hi-fi side of things is made. The parts that are required, the machines that are required, the processes that are required, the levels of management and detailing that needs to take place, the QC that's involved. I used to work at a place that did skid wrapping machines. I worked in food industry where I was making deli meats in a factory. I do work in electronic engineering stuff. So think about, see with this stuff here, this hydropower, when this gets to a location, it goes through transformers, and then when it's on location, it also has like a breaker fuse location, so it distributes through the facility. So I work at a company that is very similar to like a hydro company like GE and Easton or Eaton. There's a couple other brands like Siemens makes electronic parts. So we don't use components, but we do install hydroelectric stuff. So not quite like this. This is signal control for the lights, but giant cabinets with fuses and breakers. That's where I work now. So I have quite a number of years, 20 plus years in manufacturing. So when I talk about how important manufacturing is at all levels of things, I mean, it could be your phone to a coffee maker to a toaster, and they have these really cool videos online on YouTube. You could look it up, how it's made. If you haven't seen any of the how it's made videos, please, after this, watch one and then come back and tell me what you watched, what video you watched, or if you've seen one, leave a comment and tell me what products you thought was fascinating, something you never understood before. And then for a second here, think about if that was the first time you saw something being made and it made you fascinated to see how it was made. You think about how many levels of design, engineering, machining, personal training, how many people, levels of management, the QC process, which is quality control. How much of all of those things add up to the final cost of what you're buying? So it's not just the raw materials a company buys, has to come in from somewhere. With hi-fi, a lot of the stuff comes from China because the mines are in China, but that's not always the case. European brands like Seos drivers and Scanspeak drivers, they do have European locations for a lot of their materials, so they can make things locally. Sometimes that's important, sometimes it's not. Some people don't care where it's made, and some people do. It's important because it adds to the cost. European wages are higher than Asian, Vietnam, China. Like, these places have different wage levels. Sometimes it makes a difference. Shipping costs matter too. If you have to ship from China to sell in the US, that's a long distance. But they've sped up that process, so it's very efficient now. If it's in Europe and you're distributing to Europe, that's a very short distance. But the price is there to cover the cost of shipping to Australia. So there's a lot of levels to the final price. It's not just where it's made. People complain about that one thing. It's also how it's made. The focus of this video is to talk about manufacturing in a way that exemplifies the idea of, like, the time it takes to train a new employee to install or assemble certain things. I had to train 3 people when I was working at my job with Paradigm and Anthem, building the amplifiers. Many of the amplifiers in the world, probably 500 or more of all of their different types of amps, especially the new ones, have my signature in them. So the process of training new people to put those together with a new type of technique, figuring out how to do it as fast as possible, the most cost-efficient way as possible. When I was making deli meats, the same thing. You had to come up with ways to make it as efficient as possible, training new people, showing them the techniques. All that kind of stuff matters because you need to be able to keep up with your demand, and if there's any problems, companies sometimes have to adjust prices based on the changing world or the circumstances in which they find their process. So when the AKM fire happened, a lot of companies had to make a Mark II product because AKM couldn't ship out the parts. That happens. You know, it's an unfortunate result of natural disaster. Or, I mean, who knows? We don't know why the fire happened. But that's one thing that goes into what it costs. The cost of how many people work at the company, how many people are touching the product, how many times you have to touch the product. This is like a QC and a what they call a lean processing or Kaizen processing. See, this is all manufacturing talk. And the reason why I'm trying to bring it to your attention is when you get companies like, say, Black Ocean Audio, who is a one-man thing. He's a US-based audio manufacturer of loudspeakers who buys product at the store from wherever the stores are, mills and prepares the wood himself, cuts the wood himself, builds the cabinets himself, installs and tweaks the crossovers himself to specification, has to order and buy all the parts himself, tests and retests and finishes the photos himself. I think he does a lot of the photos and media himself, unless there's another person or two helping him out. It's a one-person operation to make quality, high-quality, real wood speakers in the USA. Now, if you're really into made in USA, you can't get much more made in USA than that. But what's the problem? Nobody knows the name. So you might really like Bowers & Wilkins or Klipsch or wherever else, but guess where a lot of that stuff is made? So there's really arguments to be made on all sides. But what I want to talk about is how important it is that we know the manufacturing process and we respect how difficult it is to make things cheap and fast and available. It makes a difference. It really makes a difference. So the next time that you're looking at something that has a quality problem, or you're not really sure where it's from, or you have issues with this or that, think about the manufacturing, how difficult it is, the pricing, what you're doing at your job matters, that kind of thing. Like, it's all up to us to figure that out. So anyways, that's the end of my video for today. Please tune in for Saturday. I will have a follow-up video to try and showcase more of the processes, parts, stuff like that. And I will talk to all of you very, very soon. Have a great day. Good night. See you next time.